Hello, this is Dolk from Kampfar, and I'm here finally at PCB Music Live.
Thanks. Can you introduce the band for those who don't know the band?
Yeah, it's beginning to be a long story now because Kampfar has been around for almost 30 years now. Started in '94. As a one-man project, me only. I had an idea for Kampfar many years before '94 actually, but it didn't happen because I played in an old band called Mock, and that was we had too much to do with that band actually. So, but the idea for Kampfar came very, very early in front of that, but it didn't happen before the band split it up in '94, and after that we became a two-piece in the '90s, and became a real band, sort of touring band in 2005, and now we're still. There's just one guy left from this band. In 30 years, we're still the same kind of band that we have always been, sort of, for 30 years. So it's a stable band for sure from Norway. Yeah.
I saw you in Paris finally when you hit Europe for Northern Islands 2, Tour 2. And we have to wait like 3 postponed shows and 2.5 years. And in Paris, we don't have a token, unfortunately.
Yeah. That's correct. You know, the whole pandemic thing hit us very hard, all of us, you know, but we were supposed to go on tour with Tåke back then when the pandemic hit Europe. So basically it was so close actually to the tour that we had the whole backline sort of in the air. When the tour got cancelled, so we got actually the Kampfar backline equipment. We got stuck in Krakow for over 2 years at some friend of us playing in the band Hate that took care of it. So it was just lying there actually until we finally got on tour with Tåke, and it was and because of it took almost 2.5 years before we could go again on tour, you know. A lot of things happened, and both Tåke and Kampfar had a lot of plans, so we had to split the tour in 2 parts. On the second part we had Paris for sure, and because of the situation with Tåke and Antifa over there, they couldn't join us, but luckily the rest of the tour company went to Paris, and I was really curious about that actually, because I was thinking that maybe not that many people will show up because Tåke is off the limit, but Paris always surprised me. So I mean, it was a really enjoyable night, I would say, in Paris. Mm.
It was kind of a crazy night and a crazy set for Kampfar.
Yeah, it was a little bit longer set, but we had the problem with Kampfar is like the drummer of Kampfar, he just got father for twins, and so we had to bring another drummer for this tour, and the rest of us could probably play sort of the whole back catalog one night, you know. But since we had a new drummer, it was quite limited. But we managed somehow to make an interesting show, I guess. Yeah.
It was good. Mm. And you also play at Hellfest this year?
Yeah, for sure. And that was a different experience. I mean, when we entered the stage, it was 42 degrees. So I mean, but just looking at the audience, they're in 42 degrees and see the kind of energy that they still had. It was amazing, and it was. It's always good to be at Hellfest, I would say. And since we have been there, I don't know, 4 times or something now, we know what to expect, and Hellfest knows what to expect also, I guess, from us. So I mean, it's a very smooth collaboration there that works very fine for us. And I must say that Hellfest is always one of the absolutely best festivals we do.
Yeah, it's good. So your new album will be released on the 12th of November 2022. Til Klovers Takt. It's like the beat of the clover.
Yeah, that's correct. You know, that album also came out of actually the pandemic, because we had no idea or plans to create an album actually. But when the pandemic hit us, we all went up to the cabin we have. I have a cabin in Hemsedal, where I've been since I was 6 years old. I've been living there for periods also during my life, so it has become more and more important for the whole Kampfar camp actually to be up there. And so we actually we couldn't go anywhere anyway during the pandemic times, so we went up in the hills and stayed there together for a long period of time. And out of that, the new album came actually, because it was not an idea that we should create a new album, but we were there together, and it was so yeah, all things comes together, and all of a sudden we have a complete new album actually. And we recorded a lot of stuff up in the cabin too that we have never done before. Now we because we couldn't go to Sweden. Normally we go to Sweden to record drums and stuff, but we couldn't go there because of the pandemic. So we basically did almost everything ourselves, and it felt like you were back in the 90s, sort of, you know, with no distractions and no just focusing on ourselves and music again. So this album is really a product of the pandemic, to be honest.
Yeah, the music is really raw, like a 90s production.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, of course, we moved on, but I mean, many things are actually recorded up there in the cabin, so it's sort of back to the 90s feeling. But we did some touch-ups and some vocal stuff in Oslo in the studio later. But I mean, basically everything was written up there. Everything was pre-production up there, and I mean, some of the main productions are still from that place, connected to what you hear on the album now. So in that sense, you can say that it's sort of it's a sort of old school thing, you know, to be up there and record stuff up there again, like I did in the early 90s for sure. Yeah.
So Til Klovers Takt, it's like the beat of the clover, right?
Mm. It's a very it's a title that connects the album in different ways. One way is like you can say that if you go way back in history, and you have all these folk musicians that you had here up in the north, and they were always playing music that the church and stuff didn't understand. So and what the church didn't understand, they always connected to the devil in a way. So those musicians were hunted just like today's or in the early 90s black metal musicians were, sort of. So I mean, I had a lot of respect for these folkloric musicians back then. that was keep on playing all these tunes and were connected to the devil all the time, and in that sense they were always connected to the cloven hoof. That the church actually said that these musicians, when they were playing, they were always beating their foot to the ground to follow the music, and the church called that the foot of the devil, or the claw. So they connected it into that, and in that sense you can say that we are maybe the new generation that keeps on lighting the torch in that way, that keeps on playing music in the same way, sort of. But in another perspective, it's also a funny title, because it's this valley where we have this cabin and where we have recorded most of the stuff. This valley is actually one of the main roads into Norway still. And it was for sure back in hundreds of years ago. That was the valley that, when the world was opening up and people came to Norway with all the people from Rome or whatever, they had to enter this valley to cross to the west coast of Norway. They had to go through this valley, so there's a lot of traces still in that valley from all the influences from abroad, but back then, when Christianity came and sort of to Norway, those people, especially in the valley there, they didn't understand what they could believe. They were superstitious in one way, they had the roots in one way, but they also got all these influences. So we still can see a lot of traces up there from that period, because people were afraid of everything actually back then. So you can see traces of all these animal carvings and demon carvings and stuff, which they had an idea that would protect them somehow, and a lot of these carvings are about these cloven hoofs still. And on a funny perspective, I mean, when we're there at the cabin, it's a wildlife that we are surrounded with. I mean, just being up there, we had cows walking next to the cabin all the time, and we had goats and foxes and whatever, you name it, and you have all these claws actually that passes by all the time. So it's also a funny remark on the title. Yeah.
Okay. So you came back to the roots with the cabin and stuff, and the clover was also used by druids for unmask demons.
That this cabin, I mean, yeah, I don't quite get your question, but I mean, this cabin, we have been, this has been the main force for me ever since I was 6 years old. I mean, people are asking, when we create stuff, and we had this photographer with us for 1 year or something that was following us, and one of these songs from the album we had called Urkraft, we have a video from flying a drone and stuff, filming us up there. And a lot of people are actually asking me questions about how did you search for this place? It was so isolated, and I mean, it's so cool to see this grim nature and whatever, and people are thinking that we have been searching for this area for a year maybe, but that's the case, because there's no gimmick here. It's just, actually, that video is taken, we just walk outside the door and that's the area. I mean, there's no gimmick. This is the area that we have been connected to for from the very beginning of Kampfar. So I mean, it's not a gimmick thing, at least.
What was the topic for the album?
Yeah, it's a really diverse one. I mean, but in the whole essence of this album is actually, I think we have to go back, because on the previous album of Obedience Manifest, everything became so personal, and I was at the lowest spot on my life. Actually, I was in the lowest pit. Everything was so dark and personal in that period, and in that same period, Ole also lost his father. So when you're thinking about the previous album, Obedience Manifest, it was really dark and personal on every level, you know. But so when we had to create a new album now, we couldn't go further down. We have to go somewhere else. And I mean, this album came from sort of we had to rise again from the ashes and get more powerful again in that sense. And in that sense, everything around this album, lyric wise and also musical wise, is very connected to the topic of the area itself, because it's like I told you earlier, it's like this area or this valley where we have this safe harbor of us, you know. This valley has been one of the main roads from Europe and into Norway. So the topic of this album is actually when Europe comes finally to meet Norway in this small valley. And there's a lot of ancient pagan stories from that area that we connect to the music and connects them up to our world like we are living now, and it's all connected in a way, and that's the whole topic of the album, the way I see it, you know.
Okay. Noel was a convert to Christianism for politics and trade reason mostly.
You think about the topic of the album, you mean, or
it's connected to the topic or not?
I would say it's more. I would say it's more universal than that, you know. It's like when you look at history, when you look at a specific place like this, when you look at all the stories and the things that they have interpreted through the years and stuff like that, you sort of realize that politics come and go, cultures come and go, religion comes and goes, all that kind of stuff. I think we are more trying to find the core essence, you know, the thing that doesn't come and go in a way. And I think especially with that second song with Urkraft represents that very sort of core thing, and that there are some things that don't come and go in that way, and the other stuff is just temporary. Do you agree, PJ?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's so connected with roots. This album, I mean, we've always been connected with roots with Kampfar, but this album is much more specific in a way. It's more specific, that's so well connected to the area itself, but in a pagan way, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of pagan stories from that area that are actually very famous in Norway, but people don't know that this is actually the area that it comes from, because it gets more and more seldom that the children learn about this stuff actually in school and stuff. So I mean, it's very connected to our roots. It's very connected to the history more than politics, I would say.
Yeah. I think a lot of people always get distracted by what is happening like right here and right now, and think that is the most important thing in the world all the time. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not really. And so I think we are actually trying to zoom out of all that stuff and go to the more core things. And also this album is also about stories, you know, stories about things that how people saw it, how they believed it, and what it made them feel like in a way. I think that's much more the topic of this album.
And what connects them still to the world we are living in now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a complex thing. Yeah.
I see. This album is very connected to the place.
Yeah, it is.
I listened most of your discography this night backwards, and for me, this album is like your cornerstone because you dig in all Kampfar history for this album.
This album is a cornerstone. Or yeah.
I mean, we've been doing some promotion now for 2.5 weeks, and there's a lot of interviews and questions like this actually. And what we have been talking about earlier is like it's very hard for us as musicians to kind of label every period of Kampfar into comparing them with each other. But I think the most easiest way to explain it is actually that at least from 2014 and forward, we got sort of a new inspiration to kind of force ourselves out of this bubble. As musicians, we always try to push the limits and try to push the boundaries of the music itself. And I think that has been more and more important for us. So, I mean, for every album now up till this one is for sure the most musical-wise album, and also technical-wise album that we kind of push ourselves and push the limits of the music. So in that way, it's sort of a big bauta, this album, you know. But if to compare it to the other ones, I would never dare to do that. But it's a different thing every time.
Yeah, I agree. I think every album is a bit of a snapshot of where we are at any given time, and they all play a different role in our sort of history, you know, because they always affect us in some way, and they affect what we do afterwards and stuff like that. So yeah, some albums have been maybe more important than others, and some of the albums, when we look back at them, some we are more enjoying 10 or 15 or 20 years later, and I think it will always be like that, and the listeners also have their own sort of idea of which one is the trademark album or the cornerstone album or the most important one and stuff like that. But I think for sure this new album goes into some spaces that we have never seen before or visited before as a band, and at the same time I think we were also very conscious about getting some of the important essences of Kampfar into it as well. So yeah, it's a little bit difficult to explain, I guess, but yeah.
Okay. This album should be a perfect soundtrack for going battlefield back in time. It's like an Odyssey. It's very epic.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Maybe it is. It could be. Definitely. I can see what you mean by that. There's a lot of atmosphere and a lot of energy. But this is also the thing that I think we think is interesting about making music, is that we put a lot of effort into actually having atmosphere and you know, things that you can interpret, that you can actually you can fill in what fits for you when you listen to this to this kind of music, you know. And yeah, if it's going into battle, then that is what it is, you know. I think people will always find different perspectives on what they feel and find in the music.
The feeling was very raw and very epic.
Yeah.
That's good
That
to
is
hear.
true.
And so you record all in the cabin?
Yeah, not everything, but a lot of stuff we recorded in the cabin. So we did some other stuff in some other places as well. But the most important thing is that this time we had to do everything ourselves because of the pandemic, we couldn't go to the studios that we normally go to. Like, for instance, we usually go to Sweden to record guitar, no, drums and maybe some vocals and stuff like that with Jonas in the Abyss. But this time we had to do everything ourselves, you know.
Yeah.
So that was also an interesting challenge, and it felt a little bit like it used to feel like in the 90s, you know, when we were making when you were making demos and you didn't know anything and you just had to figure out everything. And so that was a challenge, but it was actually really fun to do it that way.
It's really liberating, I would say. To be...
You are in total control when you do it like that, and
Yeah.
at the same time you don't really know what you're doing all the time, and that's a little bit interesting, you know.
And that's just like the 90s, my friend.
Yeah.
And you do a very huge song with the mix and the mastering. A lot of soul come for Doll voice when he's sing in the native tongue, and the music backwards, like a wall epic.
I mean, we've been doing Kampfar for almost 30 years, and I mean, I don't know if you took all the songs together, I think we have maybe 10% of the songs in English. The rest is in our native language, and I think there's a reason for that. I think it's not just like a gimmick. I think it's a reason that we feel that we are more connected to the roots and to the value of Kampfar actually when doing that. And the sound of the English language and the sound of the Norwegian language is also completely different. And sometimes we actually have tried both actually with the English lyrics and Norwegian lyrics, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, so it's more like a natural way for us of thinking in Norwegian maybe. I think the result of singing in your own native language is a different result for sure. If it's better or not, I don't know, but it's for us it feels more correct, you know.
Also about the sound, you know, the production and the mastering and all that kind of stuff. That's a thing that we have this great connection with Jonas Kjellgren, who works in the Abyss Studios and who works with a lot of big bands and stuff like that, because he really understands what we are doing. Yeah. He can immediately understand what we are trying to achieve, and he can give us that sound. We don't even have to tell him, you know. It's when we sent him the first recordings to try out and to find a sound, he could nail it almost the first time. We almost didn't have to say it to him, because he's a very intelligent guy when it comes to music. So that's also a very sort of important thing, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, he managed to for the voice of Dolk. It's very huge, very large.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we try to explain earlier in different interviews. I mean, it's not like with Kampfar, it's not like we're searching for getting the vibe, the old vibe, sounding like old Emperor or anything. I mean, it's I mean, with Kampfar, it has always been about the Kampfar sound, sort of. I mean, and we used to joke about that actually in the studios and stuff, because we can try to create whatever we want. Actually, it doesn't matter, because in the end it will sound like Kampfar anyway. So I mean, it's actually a joke, but it's also a way of truth, I would say. On a technical aspect, maybe Ole has something more to say.
Yeah, but I would also say that this time we, because you are mentioning the vocals, that they are like very huge and stuff like that. But this is also maybe a little bit of the thing that we had so much. We felt more calm this time because of the pandemic. We had more time. We had more time to explore things and test things and go like, okay, maybe on this part, maybe we should just try and do this and do that, and maybe double or triple track on one part, and then have just a dry vocal on another part, and we could experiment. I think much more than we did before, and even on the drums as well. That we could spend more time. Sometimes on previous albums, it's been a little bit like, okay, we need to get this finished like in this amount of days, and we have to go to the studio then, and we have to just do it, but this time we had like, it felt like we had forever. We were like all the time. We were like, yeah, if we don't finish it this month, we will finish it next month or the month after. You know, we had no rush, no limit, no nothing. So we could do stuff like that. We could try out 10 times with the vocals, for instance, on one part, just because we had the time.
Yeah.
Yes, because of the pandemic situation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Can you talk to me about Rucraft? This song hit me hard live in Paris.
Yeah, you enjoyed it in Paris.
Yeah, it was almost crying. No, what? It's very epic, very.
Yeah, thank you. It's it's definitely a song that we enjoy to play live as well, and it's a very difficult song to play actually, also. But when we really nail it and connect it with the audience, it can be really magical. I think it has all the ups and downs and stuff like that, and yeah, but also in Paris, the whole audience was magical. So I remember that gig. I'll remember it well, because that was a very, very nice evening.
Yeah, it was. I mean, but that song Urkraft in general. I mean, you're talking about the topic of the album. You asked about it earlier, and I mean, this is for sure one of the main thing of this album. Is like, there you have it. Like I talked about, it's like it's some interesting history and roots going on there, and with Urkraft, that's a start of actually getting the power to rise again. Like I said, when we started creating this album, this was our idea, to be able to rise from the ashes again, and the strength. And that is actually what's going on in this song, Urkraft too. But you have all these roots, you know, where people are throwing bones into a bowl and fires and stuff, and try to get power to really be able to stand tall again. And they mix it with all these influences from Europe, from northern pagan history, and they mix it together, searching for this power that comes from, deep underground somewhere, So this is also connected very well to the album, this song. Yeah.
This song has strong Midler vibe. Also.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, it's but it's also, like I said, it's I think by time, especially maybe me and Ole, especially by time, we get more and more confident or connect, the tunes and the lyrics with the topics, sort of. It's a hard task to explain, but I think we have been becoming closer and closer to that idea on every album, actually, that we have an idea and not just some tunes and some lyrics. We try to connect it to the idea of the song or the album, and that's a very hard thing to explain. But I mean,
yeah. Absolutely, and I also think that we have become much more confident when it comes to what we make, because a song like that is very hard for a record label to the people will always say it's too long, or it has too many parts, and it's very difficult to sell it in a modern setting. And this time we didn't really care about that. We really wanted to make the songs as good and as explorative as possible. And that's I think for us that's the best way to express ourselves. That's why we can put so much into a song like that, and when it really works, and when it really works live on stage, and when it really works with the audience, that's when you really feel good inside as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was epic. And I really like the bass intro on Dodon's Aperitif.
Yeah. Yeah, it's heavy, right? Really heavy.
But that is also like I said, this every song is really connected to this place. You have this Van Stralle, which is like the maybe actually the most famous folkloric story that goes through Norwegian folk music, at least, and it's where they believe that the devil was playing again with this cloth, stomping on the ground, following the tunes, and people couldn't stop dancing, and people went crazy, and in the end there was a lot of murders and stuff. This is a really historical event, actually, and that happens right there, and that's the most interesting part. So this is sort of our presentation of that.
I think also one thing that is interesting about a song like Dødens Aperitif is that again, like you say, PJ, about the confidence that we have in each other and stuff like that, because this song is it's written for, I mean, when I wrote that song, it's written specifically for Dolk to do the vocals. The song itself is very sort of bare without the vocals, and when I presented it to the other guys, we were discussing a little bit, because we weren't sure if it had like enough bells and whistles and stuff like that. But I always said that I'm fully confident that Dolk is going to put this song, put the magic into this song, and that's how we can do this stuff, when we know each other so well and when we work so well together.
Yeah. I see you get the time to achieve a kind of piece of art.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you get the connections by spending years together.
I get there is a connection with the sound of this album. I get it.
Yeah, and it's very important for us also to get all the elements together to create something that has a whole purpose, because sometimes you can hear in some bands, you can, for instance, you can hear almost immediately that, okay, in this band, the keyboard player is definitely the songwriter, because everything is centered around the keyboards and everything else is just sort of clat on together. Or some other band, you hear that, okay, the guitarist is definitely the one who's running the show. But what we are trying to achieve all the time is that all the elements need to fit together. So we need to open spaces, for the elements. That's a very hard challenge, actually, but I think we do it. That's why it's so important that we have this place where we can go to, where we are together, we don't have to worry about anything else, and we can just discuss things all the time and actually work really hard together to achieve this.
Yeah.
And you make Requiem, it's like a 3-piece?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is our interpretation of sort of a classical Requiem, you know, a mass for the dead. And of course, in the classical composer version of a Requiem, it has a certain structure and it has certain parts and all that kind of stuff. So we figured that, okay, but what would a sort of a Kampfar Requiem, what would that be like? And then we came up with what we really think is a completely different kind of Requiem, of course, but it has a little bit of that connection, you know. It's just the way we interpret it. And we actually, at some point, we thought about releasing it as 3 different songs, you know. But then we went back to what is it that we really want. No, we actually want to have it in this one big epic thing, you know.
Yeah, it was better this way.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, and lyrical wise too. I mean, it's also connected to 3 different stories, like you said, 3 different parts. But it's not like 3 different stories. It's a story that connects everything together again with the roots. And I mean, well, back in the days, what people didn't understand, they were not sure of, you know, but they had this kind of idea hundreds of years ago that people that were tormented during life, they came back sort of as a living creature in some form or another. And in this Requiem, this is also connected to the area and to the historical events and pagan history up there. And I mean, this Requiem starts with souls that are being tormented during life, and on the second part it's their funeral because they were killed in the end, and it's the funeral. And on the third part they actually come back as demons in some way or another, like they believed in, you know. So it's a Requiem in 3 parts musical wise, but it's also 3 parts lyrical wise, but it's still the same story.
Okay, for life to life. Okay. So. And can you talk to me about the cover of the album? It's like a painting. It's what? It's a kind of fist.
Yeah, this painting on the cover is actually a French artist, Jules Breton, and it's some people think that maybe it's a little bit strange that we have a French artist, and I think the theme is also taken from a French sort of midsummer fest, that kind of thing. But that's actually not so important for us. The important for us is what it represents, like graphically, and also that it has this sort of this understated thing about it, that on the face of it, it looks like everything is okay. But when you start to look at the details in the painting, there is something almost like hidden there, something that is a little bit disturbing and not quite right. And also, of course, the elements, they connect a lot with the lyrics, because you have the dancing, you have the fire, you have the sort of the community, all that kind of stuff. You have the simple life in a way that is very connected to the earth and to the nature around it. So yeah, when we found this painting, it was just so perfect that we couldn't almost believe it. So yeah,
it fits perfectly with like I said, the theme of the album too.
Yeah, it was like it was made for Kampfar.
Yeah,
but it was made before.
Yeah, well, when we found this painting, we joked about it, that we said if we had ordered this the cover art from a painter and we got this, we would say, this is perfect. This is exactly what we need. So yeah, it was amazing.
Cool. What are your best memories and worst memories on tour?
Oh yeah, it's many. I mean, we've been around for 30 years, been touring since 2005. I think we have done. I'm not sure if we have done 13 tours or something now, but I think so from the very beginning. And I mean, it's very strange because we talked about this several times, and what's worst and what's the best, I don't know. But what I know is like the first tour that we did in 2005 when we finally got the band together to be able to tour. That was only 4 dates, and and to me, that tour, I will always remember that tour, you know, because it was the first one, not basically the best, but it was the first one. So I remember that till I die. The other tours we have done, it's more blurry, I would say. But I mean, it's I don't know if you have any specific stories, Ole.
No, not specific stories, maybe, but there are so many that there have been so many sort of highlights. I mean, we should also mention the time when we went to North America and had a tour there. It was also a quite special thing because it's so completely different again from everything else. When it comes to the worst, the low points, I think you, PJ, is actually better to say that because I know that before I came into this band, you had some tours with buses breaking down in the Alps and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
We also
maybe
had
the
one.
low.
We also had one. Talking about the North America tour, we had one scary moment in North America as well when the
Yeah,
bus lost the brakes downhill in the middle of a city,
yeah.
and that could have been the end of not just this band but a couple of other bands that were on this tour as well.
If you,
That makes you a little bit. Yeah,
I mean,
that sometimes can put you into perspective as well, you know, because all of a sudden you're like, okay, it was just luck that we are not dead now, and now we have to prepare for a show tonight.
that's
So
actually the truth, you know, when we're talking about low points and high points. So I mean, there's a lot of bad promoters around, you know, and organizers for sure. But to tell about all these stories, I don't know if that's interesting. But I mean, it's very interesting to hear what you say, Ola, because that's is actually the truth. You know, when we were hitting Chicago back in that day, we could have been. That was really close, actually, to get the whole band to disappear, and that makes you think a little bit about what you are doing, actually, because all of a sudden there's a risk of sleeping in a bus during the night for sure. Yeah.
yeah,
It was like a near-death experience.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, what are your plans for 2023? Do you will hit Europe?
Yeah, we don't know that by now. I mean, we're joking about it actually because we have no exact plans for 2023, but it always comes up new offers, new opportunities almost every week now. So where we are going to end, I cannot answer that. I don't think anyone can answer that actually. But we will definitely not make a new album at least. Hmm?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But I think again, it's almost like we talk about with the album and the process there. It's like we have come to a point where we do sort of whatever we want.
Yeah.
And when it's right, it's right. And if it's not right, we don't do that. And so also right now, the whole business is a little bit like a tumble dryer because you have all these tours and festival bookings that have been from before the pandemic that have not even been been done yet, and then you have all the bands who are coming out with all their albums, and so everything is a little bit of a chaos. I think a lot of tours are struggling a lot. We see them get cancelled and all that kind of stuff. So we are definitely considering some offers and looking into some offers and stuff like that. But it's not like, I think this is a good time to keep your head a little bit cool as well, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we have it prepared, we will announce it. But I don't think we can say anything concrete right now.
No.
Okay, I see. Because you don't have to tour all the time because it's not your day job, Kampfar. I see.
Exactly.
No, we don't.
Exactly, and we made this decision. Yeah, we made this decision a couple of years ago, actually, some years before the pandemic, that we started looking into this, and we saw that we could definitely do this as a job, you know. But that means living a completely different life. That means being out there almost all the time, and we just decided that we spend our energy better when we are maybe doing it with more intense when we actually do it.
Yeah. But we have to, I'm sorry, but we have to quit this interview now because we have another one in 4 minutes.
Yes, I leave you just the final words for the listeners.
Yeah, I mean, for us, like I said earlier, and it's not even a joke. For us, it has always been very special to go to France, actually, and I really hope that we can be able to do some tours, that we will tour more cities in France, not just Paris all the time. And I mean, I really hope that we can do that because for us, France has always been a very good one.
Absolutely. And on that note, I have to say that through this year, we played a lot of shows this year, but 2 shows that will definitely stay in that memory are actually in France. It's the Hellfest one was just crazy. I mean, 42 degrees and still the tent was full. It was mosh pit. It was everything. Just completely amazing. And the show in Paris was also a very special one for us on that tour. So yeah, what can you say? It's an honor to be in France every time.
Yeah.
Thank you for Paris show, and thank you for the interview.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
See you around.
See you.
Verkligen, vi bestämde dig. Hård och klädd, en del